Welcome to the MRX Influencers podcast, where you come for the insights, but stay for the good times. I'm Dan Fleetwood, and on this podcast, I chat with the best and brightest minds in the research space. On today's episode, Mark Rodricks, who's a marketing manager here at QuestionPro, and myself talk about the top trends in market research going into 2022, what to keep an eye out for, and specifically 3 that I think you really need to keep on your radar. Hope you enjoy the episode today. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. That was very loud.
I know. I'm pumped up today, as you can see.
So pumped. I love it. Is it because we're counting down to the holidays?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And I don't know, there's just a different feeling, you know?
We're at 2 weeks exactly, 14 days until Santa's sleigh. Oh, that rhymed.
Nice. Look at that. No, I think the kids are getting excited. They're almost out of school. So, you know, things are happening.
That's great. Love it.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the live stream today. You're live with Dan, so you're tuned into the right spot. We are live on many platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. You know, we're everywhere. So make sure that you set reminders if you want to join each week and listen to what we have to say. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been watching the show for the past, a couple months now, I suppose.
Yeah.
So you'll know that we like to bring on different guests and have some fun. So we do these segments, What in the Name of Research, which we'll do shortly here. We have a guest today, Sanja, who is our new workforce president. So excited to welcome her in and hear about her thoughts on happiness in the workplace, employees, culture, what are we looking forward to in 2021, if anybody really knows, I think.
Everyone gets really excited for, I see all these things that are like 2021 coming, or 2020 is coming to an end. And I'm like, and then on 2021, we're literally just going to it's going to be January 1st and everyone's going to be like,
I know. I know. I think that's so true. But whatever platform you're watching this on, comment, and we like to make this interactive. So we'll do some Q&A live. Put your question on the screen. So as we're talking, if you have any questions, feel free to post those, and we'll answer them live on air here. So I think let's get right into it. Why not? You know,
I love learning things about research.
All right, this one's pretty obvious with some fun too. So I think you'll be able to notice this right off. So this one, the name of research, you see this all the time on receipts, right? Any customer satisfaction. So I tongue in cheek as, would you like a side of bias with that? Because this is from, McDonald's. So essentially, complete the survey and give us a highly satisfied rating and get, BOGO on any large sandwich, right? So obviously, this leads to a lot of bias. You're not going to accurately measure really anything here unless you just want to see highly satisfied results, right? So you see this all the time. Or even I've noticed when I'm checking out at some place, like, oh, here, take our survey and don't forget to give us, 5-star rating. So, it's that bias that you really don't want, because then how are you going to improve if you're just artificially inflating these scores, right? So,
but who doesn't want a free sandwich? Now, the question is do you only get the sandwich if you give them highly satisfied, or do you get the sandwich if you just complete the survey?
I don't know. Maybe I think it's only if you give them highly satisfied. Maybe if you're somewhat satisfied, they give you 20% off or something. You never know.
It's so bad. But also, from a marketing perspective, you're just trying to reinforce good brands.
Yeah. This I think is where sometimes sales and marketing don't quite meet up, right? And research. So.
Are you saying that sales, marketing, and research never are on the same page?
I would never commit to that fully, Crystal. So.
I don't know how many webinars I've gotten this year that's like, get your sales and marketing team on the same page. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah. If you can figure that out, that's awesome, So that is my what in the name of research today. So obviously a better way to do this would just be, hey, complete our survey and maybe offer the buy one, get one on another promotion or, something like that. Or maybe even after they complete it, say, hey, thanks for completing. Here's your incentive for completing it rather than basing it on a high rating. So
yeah. Now, how do we? I get these all the time when I'm at the store, right? When you're at like Sephora or Ulta, really just like the beauty stores. But I never do
that's
that.
where you grocery shop too, huh? All right. Makes sense.
And, I can do almost 90% of my grocery shopping at Target now, which is like not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I like very rarely do those surveys. So is it like, are they kind of on there as like a, I don't know, a legacy thing now that everything's digital and how like you get a lot less?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. They're trying to reach you at different touch points, right? So whether you're shopping in store or online, it's these different touch points along your journey that they're trying to figure out and measure. So it really depends. But I don't know that it's so much legacy. It's that they're just trying to get, in store versus online or wherever else you're purchasing.
I gotcha.
So yeah, so watch out for those. But I mean, I know everybody likes a free sandwich, so I can't blame them for giving highly satisfied ratings. All right, let's bring in our guest today. Hey, Sanja, welcome.
Hello. I had so many comments on what you were talking about, and I was behind the scenes, and I was like, "But you."
No. What do you have to say? Feel free to add something here.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, I agree with everything you two were saying, and it's so much around the purpose of why you're collecting data. So here, it's clearly to create promoters and to create brand ambassadors, and for somebody to tell a really good story.
Right.
Or if you're looking to collect data around what do you improve, you do it in a very different way, right? It's not a tell us you're amazing. So sometimes it's around clarity on that, but people don't really get it. So imagine how horrible it is if you had a really bad experience and then you get that and it's like, oh, tell us, tell everyone you think we're amazing. It's like, but I don't.
Right. I know. and then probably there's like bonuses and things based on, some of these ratings. So you got to watch out. You got to watch out.
Yeah.
Welcome to the live show today and welcome to QuestionPro. We're excited to have you on both here and at QuestionPro. So.
Thank you. And I think I'm equally excited to be in both.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I think that's great. So Sanja joined as the president of Workforce. So she'll be leading up that business. And really, Sanja, I would say that you're probably the best case study that we have because you were a client and now you're working for us. So there's no better case study, right? So maybe share a little bit about that and then we can dive into workplace happiness, culture, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can imagine that in as insane of a year as this year has been, when a lot of my network learned that I was changing jobs, they were like, really? Now? You're doing this? It's 2020. Like, what are you signing up for? And for me, like you mentioned, I've known our CEO Vivek for I finally did the calculation, 12 years.
Okay.
And have been, for a majority of that part, have been on the customer end and have really collaborated with him and grown a business unit where we had these incredible conversations with candidates and employees at scale. And 12 years ago, it was, just the beginning of creating online portals and really looking at real-time data. And he was just an incredible partner to me in that endeavor. And so fast forward a little bit over a decade and everything that's happening in the world today, just the idea of having the ability to have conversations with people at scale was something that when I woke up in the morning and thought about, that really energized me because you were mentioning before a little bit, what's going to happen this year and none of us know. You look at headlines and you look at these incredible researchers saying people will work from home forever. And then you look at other incredible researchers saying, but there are all these psychological and physical negative impacts. And what do you do? And so to me, being able to come here and join and be a driving force and a part of that equation for us to say, we have this incredible canvas to paint in the next year to be able to participate and really define in how we want to work moving ahead and be able to have conversations with millions of people to understand what it is they want and how their ideas and needs are changing.
Yeah.
Just made me have to do it. So again, I'm still all smiles, so energized.
No, that's good. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about too is, the pandemic has shifted a lot of, workplace culture and where we're working, how people are working. I know QuestionPro has gone, fully remote. Obviously you're in, Argentina, right? So there's there's that aspect. But how do we measure, or how do we sort of calculate what impact all this work from home or work from anywhere has, or how is it positive? Is it negative? What are some ways that we'll be doing that? I'm sure going into 2021, it'll be a key component.
It's going to be such a key component. So I would say in research, one of the things that we've seen is that initially there was a hit in productivity because a lot of organizations were not prepared to work remotely. They just weren't. They weren't a technology company or a digital company. And so a lot of technologies that companies like ours might have in place to communicate, a lot of companies didn't. And so they had to create that shift to say, how do we have a meeting if we're used to all sitting in the same room? Right, and how do we most effectively message if we're used to just getting up and talking to somebody on the other side of the floor? And so there was an initial hit, but it bounced back. Once the technologies were put in place, we see a lot of research saying that people are being productive again. And in some cases, they feel more productive because they've gotten some of their commute back in the day. They can arrange their time differently. And so we're not seeing a big hit on that. But where we are, there are a couple of different things I think that we're seeing is that one has been the impact of managers. And I think a really positive finding from last year is that I would say surprisingly many people said that they felt supported effectively by their managers. The managers really stepped up and one of the biggest things that people needed that was different than before was empathy. That's not easy. Being empathetic, being vulnerable. It's not something they teach us in school, and it's not something that's necessarily always required of a leader, but it really became a crucial thing that people were saying this year. And so that was really positive to say people were able to really step up when you were asking employees about their leaders. And then you ask the leaders, and they were saying, I'm so stressed out. I don't know how to continue being effective without micromanaging. I don't know how to manage my time well. I don't know how to continue to give the people what they exactly need, what it is they need. How do I continue to understand that and understand it at scale? And what's actually been really interesting, I would say, in the recent weeks, we've seen in our business this huge uptick of companies coming to us and asking, how do we better support our managers? One of the more specific questions has been around 360s and saying, how do we understand what's holistically going on? How are they supporting their teams? But also, how are they collaborating with their peers? How are they working with their leaders? And do they feel like they're giving enough transparency and information? So there is a lot, I think, to be done around leadership to be able to understand how do we continue to support them in the most effective way. And I think 2020 was a lot around technology and putting some of those different things in place around communications and collaboration. But now it's shifting its head and saying, how do we emotionally support you? How do we support you from a wellness standpoint? And also just understanding what the world of work is going to look like. Do people want to work from home? Do they not? And also allowing for that to change. So anyways, I'm going to pause because as you can see, I've been thinking about this a lot.
No, that's good. You have a lot of good thoughts and insights. And as I was hearing you talk, I thought, empathy was a big thing. But I think one thing that's hard is empathy and to go along with uncertainty is a difficult thing, right? Because you have to be empathetic, but there's all this uncertainty. You don't know when things are going to end. And so I think it requires a big change there. So that's interesting. How does this, this new work culture, work from anywhere, or as people start to go back into the office, what impact does this have on equality and inclusion? And what I know that this is a big topic for you and sort of your passion. So I was curious to get your thoughts on that. Does it help it? Does it hurt it? Where do you stand on that?
That's such a good question, Dan.
I'm going to go with help it because, I'm an eternal optimist. I'm going to go with it has a tremendous opportunity to help it. It will not happen by itself. And so today, when we're understanding these different changes, and I think one of the reasons why I hope it's really going to help is because people have experienced things. And I think all of us in our lives would say, I would never do that, or I would never act like this. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation, you're like, oh no, I just did the thing I said I would never do. And what that does, I think it opens up people's minds to be more understanding of people of different backgrounds. And it doesn't have to just be gender. It doesn't have to just be race. It's socioeconomic status. It's where you grew up, where you lived, what country you were in, what were you exposed to, your education, there's so many different factors. And I think because a lot of people were shaken up and had to deal with things they didn't that they would need to deal with before, and some things they dealt with really effectively, others they didn't, that it creates more open-mindedness. Now, what we need to do that as a society is, I don't think that every single individual has the information, the training, the knowledge of what do I do with that next. And so as organizations, as we think about that, that is why it's incredibly important for us to continue to measure for different individuals how much they feel included in an organization, their sense of belonging, and when there are opportunities to improve that, to understand what kind of opportunity is with which group, and how do we then have those more in-depth conversations. And I say that because being a psychologist, one of the threats we often have, and especially when we have the best intentions at heart, and sometimes that's even more dangerous in a way, is that we have a certain mindset. And because of what we've experienced, we feel like if we remove that roadblock in our organization, it's going to help everyone. Because if it's such a challenge to me, it must be a challenge to everybody else, but it's not. And that's what we found a lot in research this year as we were trying to understand how people were adjusting, that people had very different challenges. Now, there was oftentimes particularly to remote work, but applies to everything else. And so I hope we really take this opportunity to continue at a larger scale, have conversations with people to understand, how do you feel in this organization? What are you looking for? What are your aspirations? How can we do that better? And then continue to check in with them to make sure that the things that we're doing are actually effective. But it's almost impossible without asking somebody for their input to really, truly understand, not only as a starting point, but as things continue to change, because there are, without fail, going to be so many things that are going to change in 2021. So we need to keep that dialogue going. We need to keep the dialogue going at scale, and we need to keep it going on the individual level and all the way in between.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that the end of 2021, we're going to look back and say, wow, what a year for inclusion and belonging. And I really am looking forward to all of us being a part of people that write that story. So we'll revisit this in a year.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think, the 2020 is like the year nobody expected, right? So I'm interested to see what's going to happen in 2021. Kind of moving on a little bit around, the world is changing. Obviously, where we're working from is changing. How do we, as like a survey insights, platform provider, how do we keep up? Like, what are some of the plans that you have for workforce? I know you're newly in the role, but what sort of things do you foresee us implementing in 2021 to help us keep up with these changing times?
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that I've been looking at very closely in my week 2 for work is really is understanding that the employee life cycle, understanding that it's very much changing, but looking at all the different points where we can connect with people, and how I think pulse surveys has been a buzz concept or a buzzword for a while, but I think there's a real opportunity to allow for that dialogue. And when we're talking about different needs of different individuals, starting to have much more targeted conversations, but also continuing to think about what are some of the key needs. So probably if you look at an employee experience or employee engagement survey from 2 years ago, it was amazing 2 years ago, but it's not measuring the concepts that are the most prevalent today and have the most pressure. So to me, a part of my commitment is continue to stay the subject matter expert of what's going on around us and what is going on in the world of work, how is it evolving, and continuing to provide that in the form of whether it's questions or surveys or just collaborating with our clients on that, because we don't know today what's going to be important for us to know in 6 months from now, but we'll learn that over time. So the more that we can communicate that at scale, and the more, to me, I've always said that I'm really passionate about creating a community. And you mentioned that I'm sitting in Buenos Aires, Argentina, which I am, and it's almost summer, and I'm thrilled about that. But I've only lived here for the last 5 years, and the rest of my life was spent in the US and in Europe. So most of the people that I've worked with, that I love, that I admire, are all over the world. And so for me, my commitment to myself as a professional, every single person I collaborate with, whether it's a client formally or whether it's just somebody who I care about advancing their career and impacting the world to work with them, is to continue to have the dialogue with all these different individuals and continue to synthesize that and say, this is what we believe we need to know. Now, the thing is, it won't be the answers, it'll be the questions. Like, what do you need to be asking your people? And it's interesting because as you were showing that receipt, one of the things that I was thinking about too is even asking an employee, like, what's the worst thing that happened to you this month? Or what was the most challenging to deal with? Not on a scale of 1 to 5, please rate how challenging these things were.
You want to be more like humanize it. Okay, I get it.
Exactly. Like, open it up in such a sense to say, I know that everybody is having a challenge. What is your biggest one? And so you say it in such a way that you know they're comfortable. But the thing is, I would say, of course, healthcare workers, and I talk about them and I get goosebumps, are the person of the year, are the employees of the year. But man, what HR has gone through, I can't even fathom. I mean, I can. And that's why that gives me goosebumps too. And so what I want is understanding this incredible pressure that they had, an incredible responsibility for all of their people to not only keep them healthy, but keep them happy as much as possible and comfortable. It's important to help them know what's coming next. What do you anticipate? How do you ask the people? Because they can't be an expert in everything. They're already an expert in keeping their people in a good place. So how do we help them with specific knowledge to continue to do their job really well? Like, for the majority of part, they really had been in 2020.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. It's like the healthcare workers are definitely important, but like you said, the HR, like think about like the HR at some of these hospitals and trying to keep them happy and staff. Like, oh man, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, great. I think anything else that you want to add, Sanja? It's been wonderful interviewing you and getting to know, and I think sharing a lot of things that I've heard you say, with the audience here. But any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, many, but I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it short. So I found myself, even as I keep mentioning, I'm a rainbows and unicorns and an internal optimist kind of person. And I found myself mid this year doing some research and writing out actually a survey question that started, what are the most important things that make you happy at work? And I paused and I said, can we ask people about happiness now? Are we in survival mode? Like, am I going to really feel like I'm out of touch if I ask somebody what makes them happy and they're saying, well, what do you mean? I don't have the luxury of being happy today. And so to me, my hope for 2021 is that we are going to be able to swing back to looking for that happiness, that we're going to be able to swing back to helping people grow, to recreating a community, that we all re-energize ourselves individually. And then we can really start to continue to, what is next, and think big, more than survival mode. It's the reinvention, the energy, the thrive mode. So I would encourage everybody. I know it's been an incredibly difficult year in a million different ways. But as we're going into the holidays, many people haven't had the opportunity to think optimistically because we're just digging ourselves out of things every day. But to try to, and to give themselves hope, to believe that we learned a lot as a society and as a humanity this year. And just think about it. And the incredible thing is that every single person can make a difference. It doesn't matter what job you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a leader, if you're not a leader. Being kind to others, understanding others, having conversations can have infinite impact. So just as we're probably, most of us, going to have very unique holidays this year, to try to find a little bit of time and think about what is it that I as a person want to accomplish? What are my hopes and dreams? And then how can I have some impact on others? So I will button it up there. No. I have many more thoughts, but thank you so much for having me on today. I love chatting with you both. It's just such an absolute pleasure to be part of the QuestionPro family. And it was amazing spending some time with you and talking about things that I'm so passionate about today. So thank you.
Your passion comes through the live stream, so we can definitely see that. And we're excited to have you as well. So welcome. And I know great things are in store for Workforce. So appreciate your time. All right. Okay. Great.
Man, she's the best.
Yeah, I'm excited for Workforce and what's going to happen in 2021. I think it's going to be awesome. So lots of exciting things are in store. Why don't we end? I know we're kind of running a little bit long today, but it's all good. I think it was interesting. Let's go over this data point, and then we'll wrap up the show here. So this particular data point is driverless cars. Would you feel comfortable riding in one? So Cruise is a self-driving car company affiliated with GM and Honda. They're test driving driverless cars without a human safety driver in there. So I think that that's really the big distinction, right? Like other times it's been like, hey, there's still someone that can take the wheel if stuff goes haywire. Here they're testing it out in this dense urban environment in San Francisco. So would you ride in this? I mean, most people said yes, they would ride in it. 59% said yes, 41% said no. So I think I was surprised. I thought it'd be a little bit closer to 50-50, but I think almost 60% said that they would, which was interesting.
I mean, you can include me in that. I think it's definitely on the way. And I was listening to a podcast about how possibly, or the news, I don't know, about how by the time it actually gets here, people will have already given up enough little along the way that they won't even realize that they're now in it. Because I just bought a new car literally last week, and it has lane departure on it. And then I was didn't have my hands on the wheel enough, so it kept beeping at me get your hands on the wheel. So I'm on lane departure. And I was
right.
Lane departure, I have to have my hands on the wheel. But it was the computer was essentially teaching me oh, well, it'll be fine. We're here. And I was that's just one of those small steps that we're taking in not giving up, but being trusting an autonomous vehicle. And it makes
I think that makes a lot of sense. In San Francisco, though, I think you got to be real trusting with some of those hills and things, right? So,
I mean, in San Francisco, you have to be trustworthy with taxi drivers, or New York. So they're our taxi driver.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it. I don't know.
I've been in a couple situations where I was I don't know which one I would trust more.
No, that's definitely true. All right. Thanks everybody for joining the live stream today. And we'll have one more next week, and then we'll take a break for the holidays. But we're going to be continuing this on in 2021 with lots more exciting things. Lots more exciting things. There we go. So
please tell me next week that you are doing data points for Christmas, because that segment for Thanksgiving, I've literally shared with so many people.
Actually, I didn't want to give it away, but that's what we're going to do. So Tim probably doesn't know it yet, but I'm sure he has an inkling that he's going to come on, and we're going to talk about some of the different data points around Christmas, just like we did for Thanksgiving. I think it was interesting. Yeah. So we'll find out if people are still secretly happy that they don't have to travel for Thanksgiving for Christmas like they were for Thanksgiving. So we'll do that next week along with maybe another guest. So we'll see. But thanks everybody for joining today. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to the MRX Influencers podcast. If you want more information about QuestionPro, go to QuestionPro.com. If you want to follow me, feel free to do so on LinkedIn or Twitter. Until next time, we'll see you later.